All right. Looks like you've got a ton to unpack today on collaborative learning.
Yeah, you weren't kidding when you said the listeners send us a treasure trove.
Articles, research, guides,
Looks like they want us to go deep.
and they're really interested in how teamwork can boost both education and employee development.
I think we can definitely cover all of that.
But first, maybe we could start with the basics.
Yeah, what is collaborative learning exactly?
I mean, we've got a couple of definitions here, one from the NEA
Right, the big teachers union.
and one from Creatly, more from a tech perspective.
Well, the NEA focuses on the educators themselves. They talk about collaboration being the efforts of teachers to enhance the learning experience.
So it's not just the kids working together.
No, it's more about the teachers creating an environment where collaboration can actually work.
Makes sense. And Creatly focuses more on the students themselves, right?
Exactly. They define it as students working together in small groups.
To get to some common goal. But what's interesting is that both definitions talk about this shift from passive to active learning,
Definitely. Collaborative learning means engagement, interaction.
not just sitting there listening to lectures.
Exactly. It's about participation, sharing ideas, perspectives.
And even disagreeing sometimes.
For sure. So we've got a good idea of what it is.
But now I'm kind of curious about something. We always hear about collaborative learning and cooperative learning, but
Are they actually the same thing?
exactly. I feel like they get used interchangeably.
I think the Educate Me article actually breaks this down pretty well. They say that both involve teamwork, but collaborative learning is more like the bigger picture. It's about the whole process of learning together,
Yeah.
exploring ideas and figuring things out as a group.
So it's more about the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cooperative learning is much more about the destination. You've got your defined roles and tasks from the instructor, and the goal is to finish that specific assignment.
So I guess you could say that all cooperative learning is collaborative, but not all collaborative learning is cooperative.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's an important difference because how you approach each one can be totally different.
Okay, so now that we've cleared that up and have a good definition of what collaborative learning is,
Let's get to the fun part.
the benefits.
And I have to say, there are a lot of them.
I know. We found some really cool research while prepping for this.
Like the Ediflow blog, for example. They highlight studies showing that collaborative learning is directly tied to better academic performance.
Makes sense to me. If you're really engaged with the material, talking about it with your peers,
Hearing different perspectives.
it's going to stick with you.
Definitely. It's not just memorization for a test either. Edutopia even talks about how high-achieving students can actually become tutors in these settings.
Interesting. So they're reinforcing their own learning by explaining it to others.
Exactly. And the other students get the benefit of learning from someone closer to their own level.
It's like a built-in support system. Everybody wins.
Exactly. Plus, we can't forget about those important soft skills.
Communication, teamwork, critical thinking.
Conflict resolution, all things that are really valuable no matter what you do in life.
So true. So it's not just about the content itself.
It's about giving students the tools they need to succeed in a world that is all about collaboration.
And a constantly changing one.
Absolutely.
Now, this isn't just something for schools either. I was really interested in the Dispres and GP articles, how they made the case for collaborative learning for employee development.
A lot of companies are using these principles for their training now, onboarding.
Even just their everyday work.
For sure. They're realizing how good it is for knowledge sharing, improving that onboarding process.
And just getting employees more engaged.
Exactly. And in today's workplace, where things are changing so fast, being able to learn and adapt is super important.
So it's a strategy for both education and the workplace.
That's right.
Now, we can't pretend it's all sunshine and roses.
Right? There are some challenges too.
The faculty focus and SOS articles bring up some good points.
Like, sometimes participation can be uneven. Some people might dominate the discussion, while others are too quiet. It happens. And then there's the whole issue of assessing individual contributions, especially with group projects.
Right, the Montclair University piece talks about this too. How do you really know who did what and grade fairly?
Tough question. I think finding that balance between individual accountability and group responsibility is super important.
And then there's the practical stuff too. Time constraints, making sure everything is planned out well.
Collaborative learning isn't a quick fix. You've got to design it well and facilitate it well.
But luckily, our sources offer some great tips for dealing with these challenges too.
Right. Faculty Focus talks about being strategic when you're forming groups.
You can't just throw people together randomly.
Exactly. You've got to think about personality types, learning styles, even the social dynamics of the class.
And remember how we talked about those predefined roles in cooperative learning?
And Edutopia actually suggests using those in collaborative settings too.
Gives it some structure, right?
Yeah, and some accountability. Helps to prevent that uneven participation problem.
Make sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing.
And of course, the instructor or facilitator can't just sit back and watch.
Oh, absolutely. They need to be monitoring, giving feedback.
Stepping in when needed, like a conductor making sure the orchestra is in sync.
Perfect analogy.
And in this day and age, technology can be a big help too.
The Dispers article mentions platforms like Google Workspace,
Great for communication, sharing documents.
managing projects. Makes it so much easier for groups to work together effectively.
Exactly. It's about using tech to make the whole experience smoother and easier.
So we've got the benefits, the challenges, even how technology can play a role.
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Now, are you ready to get a little more theoretical?
Hit me with it.
Let's talk about some of the learning theories behind all of this.
All right, buckle up. One of the biggest names here is Lev Vygotsky.
Ah, yes. The social learning guy.
That's him. His sociocultural theory is all about how social interaction drives our learning and development.
And his big idea was the zone of proximal development, right?
Exactly. That sweet spot where a learner can do more with a little guidance from someone who knows more.
Like a teacher or even a peer.
Right. And Vygotsky believed that collaborative learning was like the perfect setting for this kind of learning to happen.
You've got that built-in support system right there in the group.
Exactly. Now, we can't forget Jean Piaget either, another giant in the field.
He was all about how we build knowledge through experience.
That's right. Even though Piaget didn't specifically focus on collaborative learning, his ideas about active learning and how we respond to our experiences really fit in with this approach.
So even though he wasn't talking about groups directly, his ideas about individual learning actually support collaborative learning.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how it all ties together.
And then there's Robert Keegan, who focused more on adult learners.
The Collaborative Learning Strategies article does a great job of explaining his work.
His theory is all about the stages of development towards greater social maturity.
And they argue that collaborative learning can help adults develop the skills they need to deal with those more complex social and professional situations.
So it's about more than just knowledge.
It's about wisdom and social intelligence, too.
Vygotsky with social interaction, Piaget with octave learning, and Keegan with social maturity.
They all point to the power of collaborative learning.
So we've got the theory down.
Now let's see how it actually works in the real world.
Let's get practical.
Right. Our sources are full of great examples. We've got the jigsaw technique, think, pair, share, project-based learning.
Peer teaching, debate.
Tons of options.
And don't forget about all the tech tools out there like Google Workspace and G1.
They can make collaboration so much easier and more effective.
All right, let's paint a picture for our listener. Imagine a marketing class where students are using the jigsaw technique to analyze a brand.
Okay, I'm visualizing it. They're divided into groups.
Each group becomes the expert on one aspect of the brand.
Target audience, marketing channels, competition.
They do a deep dive into their piece of the puzzle.
And then they come back together to share what they've learned.
And suddenly they have a complete picture of the brand.
Exactly. It's a really cool way to break down a big task, encourage deeper learning, and get everyone working together.
I love it. And the Educate Me article also had that example of projects-based learning, where students develop a whole marketing campaign for a product.
That's another great one. So real, world, and practical.
So what we're seeing here is that collaborative learning isn't just some abstract concept.
It's something you can use in so many different ways for so many different goals.
Flexible, adaptable.
Powerful, and that's what's so great about it. It really can be tailored to fit whatever you're trying to achieve.
Like a Swiss Army knife of learning.
Exactly. But, we do have to be realistic. Collaborative learning isn't a magic bullet.
Right. It's not going to solve every problem.
And there are some potential downsides that we need to be aware of.
The Social Side LibreText article does a good job of laying those out.
Yeah, they talk about how it can be pretty time-consuming.
If you're doing all these in-depth discussions and group projects...
It's going to take longer than just lecturing.
For sure. And then there's the whole issue of group dynamics.
Some students might dominate.
Others might not say anything.
It's that classic introvert-extrovert thing.
Makes it tough. And then how do you assess everyone fairly when it's a group project?
Right. The Montclair University piece brought that up, too.
Hard to know who did what sometimes.
Definitely. So finding that sweet spot between individual accountability and group responsibility is key.
Totally agree. But the good news is that our sources also give some good advice. for how to deal with these problems.
Oh, yeah, they've got some great
The
tips
faculty focus says it's really important to set some ground rules right from the start.
for how students interact with each other and with the instructor.
Yeah, making expectations clear about participation, communication.
Even how to handle disagreements.
It can really help prevent problems down the line.
And the Montclair University article talks about how important it is to make sure communication within the group is smooth.
Like exchanging contact info,
Agreeing on how they want to communicate.
even providing resources on effective communication.
Right. It's all about setting them up for success.
And then, of course, we've got the roles again.
Those can be so helpful.
Creately and Edutopia both recommend using them.
Having a facilitator, a note taker, a timekeeper.
Make sure everyone's involved and things stay on track.
It's like a framework that makes collaboration easier.
And the instructor can't just be hands-off either.
They need to be checking in, giving feedback.
Supporting the groups, stepping in if needed.
Absolutely. It's a balancing act for sure.
So we've got the good, the bad, and the theoretical.
Pretty comprehensive, I'd say.
But now let's bring it back to our listener.
Right. Why should they care about all of this?
What does it mean for them, whether they're a student, a teacher, or someone just trying to learn and grow?
Well, I think the implications are pretty huge.
Like the Colleague Mentoring Software article talks about how the workplace is changing.
Yeah, they say those days of working alone in your little cubicle are over.
It's all about collaboration now.
Communication, adaptability.
And those are all skills you learn through collaborative learning.
Exactly. And Disbrain talks about how important it is to keep learning new skills, keep updating your knowledge.
Because technology is changing so fast.
In the job market, too.
So collaborative learning isn't just a nice bonus.
It's essential for keeping up.
It's how you stay relevant and competitive.
And it's not just about work either.
The NEA makes a good point about how it can build community.
Yeah, that sense of shared purpose.
Belonging.
It can make learning so much more meaningful and fulfilling.
So before we wrap things up, let's recap some of the key takeaways for our listener.
All right, first of all, collaborative learning is more than just group work.
It's about using social interaction to really boost learning and growth.
And even though there are some challenges,
We can overcome them with good planning, communication, and facilitation.
at the end of the day, collaborative learning can really change the way we learn and work.
It makes it more engaging, more dynamic.
Right, fun.
And ultimately, it's about realizing that we can achieve so much more together than we ever could alone. You know, it's funny, we've talked about all the practical benefits of collaborative learning, the research, the strategies, but I keep thinking about something else, like why does this idea resonate so much with us?
Yeah, there's something deeper going on here, right?
It's like there's this almost instinctive desire to learn together.
It's like we're wired that way. I mean, remember Vygotsky?
Of course, the social learning guy.
Exactly. He said that it's not just about individual brains developing on their own. It's about how we learn from each other, from our interactions.
Humans were social creatures.
We are. Think about it. So much of our learning comes from our relationships, our communities.
It takes a village, right?
Right? Exactly. And collaborative learning taps into that. It gives us a way to channel those natural instincts into learning and growing together.
We're stronger together.
We are. And in a world that feels so divided sometimes,
So focused on the individual.
it's kind of a powerful antidote.
It reminds us that we can do so much more when we work together.
Absolutely.
Our different strengths and weaknesses can actually complement each other.
And when we share our knowledge and perspectives,
We create something amazing,
and this brings us back to that idea of lifelong learning.
which Disprez talked about a lot.
Yeah, how important it is to keep learning and adapting.
Especially with technology changing so fast.
Right. And collaborative learning isn't just for school or work.
It's a way of life.
It's about being curious, being open to learning from anyone.
Because we never really stop learning, do we?
Nope. There's always something new to discover. And sometimes the best learning experiences come from those unexpected connections.
When you step outside your comfort zone and learn from someone with a totally different background.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
We want to leave you with a final thought, a challenge.
think about all the tools and technology we have today. How can you use them to collaborate and learn?
Could you start a virtual study group?
Or join an online community?
Use platforms like Google Workspace to work on projects together.
There are so many possibilities. So our advice,
Embrace that collaborative spirit.
experiment.
Find what works for you.
And discover the joy of learning together.
Because that's what makes the journey truly rewarding.